All right. Okay, so can everybody hear me just fine now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So today we're going to talk about a new method for looking at near bank shear stress. Now, I know some of the people on the line, Mike Adams, if you're on the line, you're very familiar with this. And I say a new method, it's probably over 10 years old now, but it's not published. And it's a method that I want people to kind of be familiar with because it's more rapid than other methods. So near bank shear stress is one of the aspects of looking at bank erosion through the Banks process as presented by Dave Rosgen, related to bank erosion hazard index and near bank shear stress. This is all documented in the EPA WARS stability assessments, and it is supposed to give some sort of a surrogate to measuring bank erosion on streams. So instead of measuring bank erosions, you can predict bank erosion, and hopefully you don't need as much time and you don't allow the material to go downstream in the process. So a bank erosion hazard is essentially the potential of a riverbank to erode. And there's a whole lot of there's a matrix for how you do that. All I'm going to say is that there's a potential for erosion in a given stream bank. Near bank shear stress is related to the force, if you will, or the amplitude that will be sent near the area that could be eroded. So if you look at this as electrical potential, your B high is your electrical potential, your near bank shear stress is your current, or if you will, your near bank shear stress, you have to have some force applied to the bank or else you will not have deformation. So near bank shear stress is a way of calculating how much force is being applied to a potentially erosive bank. There are 7 different methods that Dave Rosgen had monitored that's been out there for, probably 15 years now. And back in 2007, I was tasked with the opportunity to near bank shear stress assessment with Dave Rosgen on 52 miles of a big river channel, and he wanted it done in 2 days. And this required us to look at B-high near bank shear stress as a little bit different way and a different way of documenting near bank shear stress. So near bank shear stress visually, if you have a deposition on a bank, it's a low near bank shear stress. If you have tower kind of centralized in the channel or a little bit towards the bank, that's a moderate near bank shear stress. And if it's right up against the toe of the channel, that's a high near bank shear stress. Near bank shear stress looks at the near bank region. The near bank region is defined by the third of the channel that is closest to the bank that you're studying at any given time. So your far bank is the one that's farthest away from the bank you're studying. Your middle bank is the one that's in the middle of the channel, and your near bank is the one closest to the bank you're studying. So with this assessment, the idea is you want to predict how much bank erosion that you have, and you can do this through a series of a banks model, which looks at near bank shear stress and the B-high, uses them together and gets you a bank erosion rate. You can multiply that by the height of the bank and by the length of the bank, and that will give you a prediction for how many cubic yards of material will be eroded. You can multiply that by the expected density of the material that's eroding, and that will give you how many tons of material gets eroded into a stream on a given year. So the new method that we're looking at is essentially a graphical method that will allow us to spatially look at near bank shear stress by plotting the thaw wag. And the benefit of this is a lot of our geomorphic surveys, we plot the thaw wag anyways. And what we proposed to Dave years ago is that your near bank region is your closest 1/3 to the channel. So that if you're in a moderate high, very high or extreme, you're in that closest 1/3 to the study bank. And then we went from 1/3 of that closest 1/3 for the study bank to look at your near bank shear stress as being broken up in different regions of the channel. So if you're in the closest 1/9 of the channel, you're going to be in the very high or extreme values. If you're in the closest 2/9 of the channel, then you'll be in the high, very high, and extreme range. So this is a way that we can spatially plot a fall wag of the channel and infer a near bank shear stress. On a cross-section standpoint, this is kind of what we look like on a cross-section. And the last graphic, I'd like to thank Kennard Live for putting together that graphic for us on plan form. And Mike Adams put together the graphic in cross-section for us years ago related to the study bank and the near bank shear stress. So the purpose is that we can plot a near bank shear stress based on thaw wag position, which is something that we generally pick up in representative reach surveys anyways. So with that, I'll open that up to any questions, comments, if anybody's used the method and doesn't like it, or if anybody's has suggestions they'd like to suggest to it, or any other comments, I'll leave it open to that.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? This is Mike.
Thank you.
I guess a couple notes of caution on this. First of all, if you are building a bank erosion rate curve, this method is a little bit problematic in that you don't get a numerical value for the output. We've kind of been toying with a little bit to back out a numerical value for this, but you know, typically when you're building the erosion rate curve, you're plotting an XY value of B high and of your near bank stress. So just be cautious if you think you're going to build a curve with this, that you're going to end up with all of your points on a single vertical orientation for each of the near bank stress conditions when you look at the bank erosion rate plot. So that's a little bit of word of caution on that. And another thing, Dave, I've been kind of saving the, but kind of rethought a little bit about how this cross-section works and saving the extreme conditions more for either under the bank or cantilevered scenarios. Just because it seems that you in reviewing a lot of the banks analyses that come across my desk, people tend to be a little bit too harsh on the system and want to call things extreme when they may not be. But anyway, that plot you pulled up there kind of shows how a lot of those points are clustered around the near bank stress markers on that. So anyway, just something to think about.
Yeah, and I've struggled with that too, Mike. Pretty similar in the sense that I like the tool. Originally we had actually moved extreme to have 1/9 of the channel, and then recently, I think by the time we put the plot together, so when we originally went out with Dave years ago, we had 1/9 of the channel being the extreme near bank shear stress. And then by the time we put together the figure, we moved it to 1/18 of the channel because we kind of felt like it overestimated it. But I still find sometimes where it seems like it kind of overestimates the near bank shear stress in that really close near bank region. So I would tend to agree with you on that a little bit. And I don't have a good solution for it, but I would tend to agree with the observation.
Yeah, and if you're out in the field and there are other energy dissipation processes going on that are related in particular to plan form, one of the other 7 methods may be more appropriate to kind of overrule this method. So.